Welcome to San Diego Integral, August 9th, 2025. Our topic today, From Materialist Maps to Sourced Creation, Animating a New Paradigm of Being, presented by Holly Woods, PhD. Hello, everyone. Welcome to San Diego Integral. I'm Jerry Golick. I'm a member of San Diego Integral's leadership team. And today we're very excited to welcome Holly Woods as our guest speaker. And her topic will be From Materialist Maps to Sourced Creation, Animating a New Paradigm of Being. So we will begin that presentation shortly, but first we have just a few announcements. You can stay connected to San Diego Integral on Meetup or Facebook, and please join one of these groups, and that way you'll automatically be notified when a new event is added. And you can also contact the leadership team through Meetup or Facebook if you ever have comments or questions about these events. There's also more information about San Diego Integral on our website at sandiegointegral.org. We hold our regular meetings the second Saturday of each month at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Next month, we'll be meeting on September 13th, and our speaker will be Abigail Lynham from Pacific Integral. And Abigail has presented here at San Diego Integral before, and she's a wonderful presenter in person and teacher. And so we can look forward to that. And she hasn't announced her topic yet, but we'll post that as soon as we get it. And finally, we would invite you to make a small donation for today to help cover our meetup fees, the web hosting, and other costs associated with running these meetings. And you can make donations at sandiegointegral.org. Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. And at this point, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Tom to introduce our speaker for today.
Thank you, Jerry. It is my pleasure to introduce Holly Woods. I love her name, don't you? I wish I had that name. Holly Woods is founder of the Emergence Institute and creator of the Living Portal, which is a framework that guides visionary leaders and change makers to reclaim their multidimensional wholeness and to bring source creations into the world. With a background spanning human development, science, and ancient wisdom traditions, Holly helps individuals and organizations evolve beyond problem solving toward innovations born from the unified field of being. Mostly I don't have to explain that too. Holly's clients describe her as life-altering, producing a quantum leap, and a catalyst for profound transformation. She is the author of The Golden Thread, Where to Find Purposes in the Stages of Your Life, and a lifelong explorer of the intersection of consciousness, creativity, and cosmology. And without further ado, I give you Holly Woods.
Thank you, everybody. Good to be here. I'm delighted to be with you this evening. We're gonna have a fun time, I hope, and you might want to put on your seatbelts. So we're gonna have some provocative ideas, and my intent today, my hope, is that we'll all stretch our minds just a bit and our hearts, open our hearts, and even push out the edges of our beingness by considering the possibility of the things I'm gonna bring. So glad you're here with me, and I hope this is fun. So I'm going to start sharing screen now, and let's see. And we're going to get going. Everybody see the screen?
Yes.
All right. So tonight, as Tom mentioned, I want to offer a frame that is both ancient and radically emergent. A frame that I believe is necessary if we're going to meet the complexity of this moment. And we're not going to talk in depth about this moment because we all know where we are. So our topic today, From Materialist Maps to Source Creation, Animating a New Paradigm of Being, sounds poetic, but it's not meant to be metaphorical. I believe it's an evolutionary imperative that we actually learned to be and do these new things. So before we get started in the meat of this experience, the content, I wanted to offer a quick dive into the cosmic folds we're going to explore, wade into this evening. So if you don't mind, I'm going to do a quick visualization, and feel free to close your eyes if you like. No pressure. I want you to remember a time when a great synchronicity unfolded for you. Something marvelous happened. Everybody has one at least, right? So it could be a deja vu or an event so unusual and astonishing there was no way to explain it. And I'm not talking about looking at a clock and seeing 11:11. That's a wink from the universe in its own way, but I don't call that a great synchronicity. Something bigger. You met someone you'd never anticipated, you had an idea or a deep desire, and the perfect opportunity presented itself to actualize it. Or you dreamt of a possibility and whoa, a person showed up and like created the opportunity for you to live into it. So just reflect for a moment. Think of an event or a circumstance in a time that you were surprised and delighted at what seemed like a random synchronicity that presented itself. So everybody got one? All right, now, if you haven't already, close your eyes. Imagine that is how your everyday life is. That everything that happened was life unfolding right on time, everything everywhere all at once in your favor. I know that may be a little hard to imagine, but I want you just to feel the tickle of that possibility. Just, maybe some hairs raised on your arm. Let your heart open to that possibility. I know it sounds like hocus pocus, but just imagine if everything in your life was exactly what you truly needed and you didn't have to worry about it. What would that be like? So dispel the disbelief. What would it be like if that was possible? Because that's the gist of what I'm going to share today. How do we arrive there? And why are we not already there? Not because we all want to be rich and famous, but because we all want to live lives of deep meaning, of fulfillment, of soul expression, of contribution aligned with our highest, greatest, best selves, right? Our cosmic avatar. Like, does anybody here not want that? Now, that doesn't mean that everything turns out exactly as you prefer, because you'd be thinking with your little human pea brain rather than as a multidimensional being. But in this alternative reality where synchronicity is the way that we live, everything always turns out right. Perfectly, in fact. Exactly as the universe ordered it for you, as long as you get out of the way. So are you with me so far? So because I live from that place of synchronicity, day in and day out, of course, a synchronicity happened for me today, and I just wanted to share it with you. And it's always this way. It's always something that shows up that's just like, okay, really? So some of you may know Daniel Pinchback. He's kind of an out there author, philosopher who writes and speaks about all things material to transcendent. He sent an essay today, a newsletter. And I'm going to read what he wrote in his essay. How do we catalyze humanity's next evolutionary phase shift, potentially transcending from this lower dimensional materialized substrate to a higher dimensional superpositional condition of being where we anchor ourselves in consciousness itself, exiting the space-time matrix? Now, he wrote this in response to two very prominent scientists who are proposing this question. So, of course, I emailed him because I couldn't believe the synchronicity of him sharing this today. But as you follow with me this evening, you'll understand why this is so profound. So I don't really have to say very much about this. I know that we all believe and are living the fact that the meta crisis is really kind of almost the only thing that we think about, and how do we survive it We're living in a time of cascading collapse, ecological, political, economic, social, spiritual. And these aren't isolated breakdowns, but expressions of something deeper. I believe they're an expression of an ontological rupture. And I'm going to talk more about what is ontology and why I think that. But like many of you, I spent decades trying to fix the world, myself, the world, both together all at once versus an activist and a scientist and a practitioner. But I kept wondering, why aren't our brilliant interventions working? With all this massive brain power, with all this great intent, with all this deep perseverance and commitment, why aren't we making progress as humans on planet Earth? And so the base question today is, what if we haven't actually addressed the root of the crisis, which is how do we perceive reality itself? And so most everybody here is an integralist or an integral light, as Layman Pascal recently created a new term. I'm guessing that many of you do know Layman. For those who are not integral, this is the 4 quadrants, which is one of the primary lenses, foundational to integral. Integral is an epistemology in a way, or a way we know the world in integral speak. So there's lots of lenses and frames through which we can explore reality. And so also many of us in integral know that real solutions live inside us. So everything that happens on the outside of our being is literally a reflection of what's inside us. And so we often talk about that personal transformation is required to shift the outer world, or the inner shapes the outer. Probably not everybody completely agrees with that, but it's fairly common awareness in the integral world. And so for those of you who don't know integral, this quadrant is categorized by inside, outside, individual, collective. And so the upper left and the lower left are the interior quadrants, interior individual, interior collective, and the right-hand side are outer quadrants, individual and collective. And so just reviewing this very quickly, we know that the interior individual quadrant of our being is focused on personal transformation, healing, shadow work, mindfulness, and vertical development, human development. The collective interior is focused on culture, value shift, norms, narrative, collective consciousness. And so all of these things are critically important and absolutely have, important important foundational work for all of us in the world. They're all vital. But the question I'm going to ask us to sit with tonight is, when we say the solution is inside of us, what ontology or sense of reality is that self resting on? So when we think about which we, interior, exterior, individual, collective, interior, individual, and collective, are we talking about what shapes us from the inside of our 3D identity, where integral maps are typically drawn from a worldview that is literally about our human existence on the planet? Are we talking about the inside of us that is larger than that is a multidimensional identity that takes into account soul lineage and non-local consciousness, that takes into account the quantum or energetic fields and our participation in the larger cosmos? So what if the very we, the inside that we're using and preferring to create solutions for our world meta-crisis is still encased in this ontology, which integral represents, that is limited to this being that we see in front of each other today here in the Zoom room, that we must outgrow. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how we ended up in this paradigm, this materialist paradigm, because I believe the root of the meta-crisis is not just structural, all the many, many, many incredibly brilliant, important innovations that are occurring in the world, but it's also ontological, and it lies in how we perceive reality and who we are in creating a different reality. So I'm suggesting that we became severed from the larger, broader way of knowing ourselves as the materialist paradigm came into being. And I'm definitely not going to do a discourse on the materialist paradigm. I've studied it enough to understand it, but we don't need to go into deep detail. But roughly 800 years ago, in these very revolutionary phases that I've got on this slide, and Ian McGilchrist has done a marvelous job outlining in his book, The Master and His Emissary, if you really want to go into that. And he talks about in that book, his thesis is that it's also related to our right-left brain hemispheres. But because of these shifts, we have become discrete form. It's how we lost our original participation in the cosmos. We separated as beings through these phases, these understandings of who we are. And then we internalized that materialist paradigm. We became the form that the awareness created about us. And so the consequence of that is that the world became a machine. Consciousness became a brain function, nature became inert matter, and humans became discrete, isolated units severed from the sacred and the cosmos. So this wasn't just a shift in ideas, it was a shift in being. It rewired our perception, our imagination, and our actions, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. And it made the self, our identity, our perception of who we are in this reality and ontology, a closed system. So I could only access what was in the system in which I was bound, an identification. So when we imagine ourselves to be this closed system, discrete, isolated units, our perception of reality is only able to create solutions from that frame. And so because some of you may be saying this is, woo-woo, mumbo jumbo, hocus pocus, this isn't real proof, etc. I do want you to remember I am an explorer and a scientist. And in my very naive way, I've been studying this for decades, because I came to this life to figure out how we can come into greater soul expression and to become the beings we're meant to be. I've always wanted to understand this stuff, well beyond the obvious. And so I very informally studied quantum physics and all things cosmology and cosmometry, trying to understand the foundational reality crisis. At one point, I actually worked as a consultant for the organization that built an organization around Nassim Haramein. So I was actually fairly close to him as his unified theory of physics was coming into the world. I don't claim anything other than I got really close and it was so exciting and amazing. And I came to understand his unified theory of physics much in more depth than I would have had otherwise, which helped, me to create some foundational awareness. But I would say even more important is I was blessed coming to this life very connected. I heard voices, I had all the clairs. I already knew I was not just human, like at a very early age. So while much of my lifetime has been very traumatic and challenging, I also knew there was a reason I was having those experiences, something well beyond anything I could interpret as a human. And my first book, The Golden Thread, describes a whole bunch of this journey, if you're interested. And more recently, I came to understand very loosely the cosmic order of things. So spiritualism tells us about the interconnectedness of everything. That's one of the beauties of, deep spiritual life. But it's actually science, quantum science, that tells us about the order of it all. I mean, there are a lot of lineages that also talk about the order in their own way. And there are many different ways that religions and spiritual lineages talk about order, but I'm talking about sort of the physical, if you want to call it that, the manifestation of the cosmos that exists as a model of wholeness, the holographic characteristics that say wholeness is present at every point, or the fractal nature of the cosmos, where fundamental patterns of cosmic geometry is repeated at all scales, from the tiniest Planck, scale below an atom to the universal scale. It's all repetitious. And then the toroidal geometry of the cosmic intelligence at all scales, which provides intrinsic feedback and feed-forward loops, which is also present in all harmonics or music. And then the electromagnetic interactions operate at all scales. We are all electromagnetic fields. Everything inside of us and everything outside of us at all scales. So if I understand that from the tiniest Planck to the grandest universal scales are all the same, does that not mean we are God? Stardust are us? And what can I access from here when I have an awareness of that, not just oh, maybe that's possible, and maybe someday I'll reach a place that is, lives part of my life, and occasionally I go there. It's like, what if we lived in that form? So I believe that our experience of the meta crisis is really a reality crisis. Are we participants in the greater cosmos, as has been suggested by all religious and spiritual lineages, and also is now theorized and measured through many streams of science, which I'll present in a few minutes? Or are we separate beings, discrete entities not fully connected to the otherwise animate planet we live on, into the cosmos? Now, most people on the planet would argue, sure, I believe we're all interconnected, and of course I have access to all that, and I, look forward to the day where that's more a part of my experience, and I'm awake and enlightened. But we live generally separated. And really what I'm suggesting is that we can do the homo participans, I'm not sure how you even say that, we can live as those beings right here and now. And that it's imperative that we do. And so this is just another reflection about integral. Don't mean to I certainly do not mean to dismiss integral in any form. I'm an integral master coach and have depended on the frameworks greatly, and totally believe in meta theories. I'm a theorist. I love building models, but I also know that with everything there is a next version, and so for us to begin to imagine, question, be provoked to imagine that when we consider ourselves small and constrained by our, three-dimensional identity, this psyche, this body, this lifetime, this brain, this human organs we live in, we are constrained by those mechanistic, linear, logical forces. And that we are literally, truly energetic beings living in a sacred geometric universe. And so our well-meaning solutions remain within broken ontologies. And while all the things available to us, I've done decades of inner work living as a materialist in materialist form. And oh my God, I can't even imagine not having access to that. And at some point, we do want to grow beyond it. And so this reality crisis has broken us. What we believe is real is not the only reality. It shapes what we perceive, and perception shapes imagination, which shapes action. And so this trajectory of perception of reality and its role in what we can imagine and take action on defines what is possible. So if reality looks like inert matter, we default to control, extraction, fragmentation. But if reality is animate, alive, conscious, ensouled, the field of possibility explodes. So this isn't philosophy, it's physics. And it's physics that we can practice to create a different future. So I just wanted to outline for all the skeptics in the room, which includes me, that there is so much science now that supports that the materialist paradigm is no longer, a singularly viable way to view the world. And I'm not going to go through all these. I'm certainly happy to talk with anybody later. And I don't profess to be an expert in any of these things. But science really is beginning to converge with what indigenous and mystical traditions have known, that reality is alive. And so if the cosmos is intelligent, structured, and conscious, then so are you. At a multidimensional level, not just as a 3D being. So it invites a different kind of identity, not as a bounded being in space-time, but as a node of consciousness in the living field. It means yourself is not singular, but spiral, part of the living universe. It is not discrete, but fractal, a repetitive experience. So all these concepts I'm talking about apply to us as individual beings. We are holographic. We are fractal. We are connected to the whole. So this is ontoepistemology, I think is a word I made up. Ontology, what we believe is real, the ground of being, what is real. Epistemology is how do we know, our way of making sense of what exists. How do we know it's real? And so Integral has given us one of the richest ontologies available. But the epistemologies that grounded it, rationalist, materialist, scientific, can limit the fullness of what we're able to perceive. So what if we extended not just the map, but the way we know the map? Nothing wrong with integral maps, but what if we extend them and know them differently? What if reality isn't just observed, it's participatory, entangled, and alive? So there is a consequence when the map becomes a cage. When we don't ask the questions, is reality inert or alive? Is the self discrete or entangled? Is consciousness fundamental or emergent? And I'm guessing everybody in the room has thought about, been curious about these questions. To become portals of a different future, we must transcend the maps into the multi-universe. Reclaim our multidimensionality to become post-materialist selves. And so here's the pivot. Integral and its mini-maps and its meta-maps and its meta-theories are solutions, and they're profound solutions. Probably some of you know about Rob Smith's work. Why am I blanking on the name of his organization? I was part of it.
Institute for Applied Metaphysics.
Thank you, Karen. I worked with him for a short period of time. Thank you. I mean, oh my God, profound, right? Like world changing. And there's still solutions that are reactive. They come from the past, which always includes fear and limitation, from the materialist awareness of the world. Not saying they're wrong, not saying they're bad, not saying that we shouldn't do them, but it is a form of reality. And I'm just inviting us to consider a different form of reality as well. And I'm calling it animate paradigm. Sourced creations come from a different place. They arise from wholeness, from coherence, and from attunement with the cosmos. So we, internal, big picture must become the new reality in order to birth something new that is not a solution. It's, it's a cosmic form of innovation. So to do this, we need to reclaim our multidimensional selves and open the portal. It's not about fixing what's broken. It's about birthing what's never existed before. So what if you are not the one fixing the world? I've spent an entire lifetime trying to fix things, fix myself, fix the world, fix all the things around me. But what if we're not actually the one fixing the world? This has been so life-shattering for me, life-shattering, life-opening, different. But the aperture through which the new world arrives, it's not me doing it. So I'm going to ask you to just pause for another minute. Close your eyes if you're willing. I'd like for you to begin to remember who you really are. So sense your body. Sense the space around your body as alive. And we're talking about beyond your skin. Most of us know about our aura, but that's the small version of our spherical energy structure. Our human energy structure at minimum is actually 20 or more feet off your physical body. So imagine yourself, let's just say you're a normal human. Imagine that you are actually 20 feet out from your body in every direction. And that 20 feet is filled with you, nothing but you. I want you to imagine the juicy goodness that you bring to the world in that form. And now imagine the eternal infinite version of you stretching backward in time through your lineage. For those of us who are old enough, you may remember the clips from old-timey movies or a Viewmaster. I think we're probably all old enough in this room to remember that. Imagine your ancestors standing in a line behind you, and you're connected to them through time and space. Those ancestors are encouraging you to become who you're meant to be. They want you to create solutions for their future. They want you to be all that you came to be. And they are actually here with you and you with them. And now imagine your lineage stretched out in front of you. Whether you have children or not, you're connected to a soul family. Imagine the beings who are benefiting from your anchor now in this moment, in this future yet to come. Imagine the effect you have on the future from here. Now, what shifts can happen for you when you locate your identity in that continuum? Just take that in for a minute. Breathe that, anchor it. Open your eyes when you're ready. So this is what I began to experience a few years ago after decades, lifetimes of personal work, trauma work, vertical development, all the things, all the things that Integral is so good at. I've been working on soul alignment for decades and had begun to experience a profound, pervasive internal coherence, like harmony and peace that I never imagined in this lifetime. Those of you who know my story, I had long trauma phase, decades. And I'd finally moved past that, began to experience a resonance with the world that I did not know was possible. But what truly took me by surprise was when my life was so filled with synchronicity that I had to keep a journal to believe it. I like, what's happening? I don't think this is real. And I would write down all the things every day and just began to fill pages and pages. It was magical. And I walked around with my jaw dropped, like, what is going on? But like any good scientist, I was recording the shifts and practicing and developing tools and reading everything I could get my hands on, from physics to esoteric texts, trying to understand it. And ultimately I did, and there's I do a lot of channeling, so I had a lot of help. But ultimately I did understand it to the best of my ability. And this is the sequence of events that I came to have an awareness that I had experienced and then began to practice with my clients. So it starts with radical wholeness that's only possible when we reclaim the parts of ourself lost to time and space and begin to reconstruct our lives, human lives here on the planet, from wholeness. I think we all probably have some sense of the wholeness that's possible when we pass on from the human life. Well, having studied voice dialogue and internal family systems and using those tools for several decades, I began to experiment and having an awareness that you can use those strategies in a multidimensional way. And I began pulling the threads of my karma and former lives into this life and reclaiming those parts, and then beginning to literally feel whole like I'd never imagined was possible. So radical wholeness can happen. And from that wholeness, then we create soul alignment with all of those reclaimed parts and their essential truths, which then causes us to experience internal coherence, because all our parts, which we've now reclaimed, are now moving in the same direction as our whole mature, individuated expression as human. So as we reclaim more and more parts, we gain more and more and more internal coherence, where all our quarks and atoms and molecules and cells are aligned, moving in the same direction. So that's internal coherence, which then leads to external coherence. Because all of me is moving in the same direction, then I begin resonating or radiating with my external world. And so I am internally coherent, externally coherent, radiating that energetic, which then leads to superposition, where we begin to believe in and access alternate or parallel realities right here in human form. And then and only then does synchronicity become an everyday reality. And at that point, magic is reality flowing through you, not from you. It is source moving through us as a portal. So we become these portals, sourced creators. And I swear to God, when it was happening to me and I became whole and la 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 la, it's magic. I started to feel an unconditional love that I had no explanation for. Like, what's going on? Like, I don't even know. And what I came to surmise is that all the parts of me that had been formerly fractured and repressed and hidden, across time and space, this lifetime and others. And then I reclaimed all of that. A self-love emerged that I never knew was possible. And not only that, but I came to have a trust and a faith in the universe. And that took a while. It took a couple of years for me to actually believe that everything was happening was the new way I was experiencing. And I really can trust that the universe does want to provide me the opportunity to live, my best life as a human. And not, like I said, not everything happens like you prefer, but it happens perfectly for your evolution. And so this is what I call the new physics of transformation, physics of possibility.
Can I ask a question, Holly?
Yeah.
Um, Looking at this path towards the portal,
Mhm.
what is the effects of psychedelics? Because people often, talk about the breakthroughs and more wholeness. What does it do to this trajectory?
So it's a great question, Tom. Thank you. I love that you asked this question. And so I'll acknowledge that late in life, after decades of doing deep personal work and significant trauma, my guides finally said, okay, now you can try psychedelics. I'm like, what now? After all this time and all this effort? And I do believe that, I'll get to your question in a minute. I do believe that I was supposed to have all those experiences I had so I could understand all this. And that if I had swiftly gotten there with use of psychedelics or other tools, that I wouldn't have had the great scaffolded experience. I know that we are given, some of you may know the term scaffolding that's often used in educational lingo. And what it means is that we're given a piece and then we're given another piece and it scaffolds on that former and then we're given another piece. Well, I've come to understand that's actually how the universe works also, that like I understand this, but I don't understand the next step. And so I can only get the next step when I am ready for the next step, when I've understood and integrated and embodied, and now I get the next one. So I was told not to use psychedelics until I was actually ready to have a level of awareness about how all this happens. And therefore, then I could use psychedelics and they'd be effective and useful, and I wouldn't miss any of this. My own, and I do facilitate, I'm highly trained psychedelic facilitator underground. I'm not going to write that anywhere. So, I have experienced that psychedelics like they lubricate your awareness. They open us up for opportunity for any of this to happen, and they create a visceral and visual opportunity for you to see it and feel it. My own experience of psychedelics and in working with others is that it doesn't change the trajectory of the work. It can make it easier, but you still need to go through the things. Maybe there are others in the room who have, experience, could speak to that. That's been my experience. Still, I'm still finding parts, last weekend, I found a new part. It never ends. It's a never, ever, ever, ever ending process. That's why it's a spiral. It just goes on and on and on. And you reach a level of integration. And I use that term loosely, not in the typical psychotherapeutic mode, and I can talk more about that later, but we continually become more and more and more whole, aligned, coherent, radiant, superposition, etc. So there's kind of a never an end. I'm guessing and I know from my own experience that the more and the more and the more love, the more magic, the more trust, the more faith. Like I don't worry about anything ever, ever. Like I don't worry about anything ever. My unconditional trust, and I call it unassailable faith. It's so unconditional that it's like one of the benefits of doing this work is we can arrive at a place where I am literally just transmitting source and expect that the universe is going to work on my behalf. Sometimes it hurts like hell, but it's on my behalf. And so I want to get out of the binary thinking materialist or animist, just in case you think I'm suggesting that. I'm not. Like we need it all. We need to stay in the material world, human form, drive cars, live in houses, pay bills, etc. We need those meta theories. And we also need to begin to grasp the potential of a sourced orientation. And I don't expect anybody to read all this, but it is like beginning to move from, living totally in the material world to, flying off the planet perhaps, but I think that's a long way away. So it's a spectrum, and it's from mechanistic fixing through integrative evolution to sourced creation. basically. It's a map. It's not to replace, to reorient us. So I'm suggesting that we must, if I be so bold, learn to live, speak, serve from the sourced orientation where time is holographic solutions and creations dissolve into initiations and identity is a dance of entangled frequency. And so these are the four pillars of the living portal. Soul alignment, so our soul thread across lifetimes. Creative emergence or becoming wild creators, so birthing new creations from that alignment. Radical wholeness, integration of fractured parts, and cosmologic attunement, living in rhythm, coherence with Earth and the cosmos. So these are the pieces that I've come to know are critical for us living in this new form. And I could, it would take me a few hours to describe all of this. I did a little bit of embodiment work at the Integral Leadership in Action conference in April, but I'm going to give you a visceral experience of what's possible in your body and energy field here in a little bit, to give you a taste of it. And then only because I want you to see how ridiculous I am, probably. I've been working on this map for several years, and I refuse to put it in a pretty program because I don't want to pretend that it's all figured out. This is my evolutionary flywheel, and involution being, inner mastery, anchoring in true self, which occurs through greater alignment, and then evolution, which is our external expression, expanding into outer mastery, which becomes, more evolved with coherence. Again, and then you end up here at the ideal state of unity and infinite love and expression. Maybe someday I'll put this in a book, but for now it's just like, I do believe, there's, I think, a few years ago, there was fair agreement that like 35% of humanity is in awareness of self that's socially constructed, early tiers, early stages, and thus part of our challenge on planet Earth. And probably there's, less than 5% of people who are in later stages, tiers, that's growing and growing. Actually, I heard there were 40% who are late stage, subtle, early meta-aware, integral the other day. Who knows? But literally just to demonstrate that becoming a portal isn't linear, it's spiral. And we begin with limitation, we descend into shadow, we reclaim what was lost, align, radiate, serve new expressions. So involution, going in, has to precede evolution. It is a critical foundation of becoming, a greater version of ourselves. And this is a spiral path of transformation. And so why now? Why do I think this is imperative? I literally think it's not a luxury, it's a necessity. We need to start thinking that reality is different than we've been viewing it. And I think there's I don't know, in the last week, I've read probably 8 different articles and listened to a few podcasts where people are beginning to hint at these things. So I think it's in the zeitgeist. Integral gave us amazing maps, which we still need to use and which are still a part of our future. And we also must now become a new and different reality simultaneously. So future making happens as portals, not problem solvers. So at this point, unless there's any questions I need to address, I would like for us to I would like to lead us through a guided visualization. So if everybody can get really comfortable, and this guided visualization is intended to walk you through the 4 pillars. So I'll kind of announce it as we're coming to the sections. So get comfortable, close your eyes if you like. That was a lot. I appreciate your patience and tolerance of my rapid speech. So let's take some deep breaths together. In and out. Coming back to ourselves, letting go of all those words. Just feel the ground beneath your feet, and your butt in your chair. Steady presence of the earth holding you. She is our greatest ally, Mother Earth. So just let your shoulders soften. Let the outside world fall away as you turn inward to the landscape of your being. So we're going to talk about radical wholeness now. Imagine you're standing in a vast, quiet space. Perhaps it's a forest you know, or a meadow, maybe a desert canyon, might be a lake or river. Notice your surroundings and let yourself arrive fully into this scene in your mind's eye. Begin to walk slowly down the main path of this sacred spot. As you walk, you notice the foliage, the trees and the bushes, position of the sun or moon in the sky, any animals or birds or insects around you. Maybe there's an animal following you, curious about your path. As you experience this oasis of nature, you also begin to notice that all around you are paths stretching out into the distance, each one leading to moments in your life or lifetimes where a part of you was left behind. And from these ancillary paths appear other beings. These beings might be a younger version of you from this lifetime, or from another lifetime you faintly remember. They might represent parts of you that were ridiculed, judged, repressed, or who were told you weren't good enough. These beings who are walking towards you represent parts of you who've been lost from your whole self, fractured, repressed memories, forgotten parts of you that represent your soul's essence. One by one, invite these parts to step forward. Look into their eyes. Feel their ache of having been forgotten or repressed, and their longing to return home to you. With each breath, notice the desire of these parts of you to be seen, witnessed, allowed, accepted, welcomed back into the folds of your whole self. Now open your arms and invite them back into your heart. And whisper to them, "You belong. You are part of me. You are welcome here." As you begin to allow these beings an opportunity to come home, sense yourself growing fuller, more radiant, like a vessel filling with golden light. Begin to feel what it means to be radically whole. And now we're going to step into the pillar of aligning with your soul. And now in the center of your heart, notice a luminous golden thread, your soul's axis, the through line of every life, every gift, every longing. As each of the parts who have made themselves known share with you a glimpse of both their wound and their gifts, remember looking into their eyes. You also witness their courage, their tenderness, their creativity, and their wisdom. See their wounds and the gifts threading onto the golden strand, your soul's axis, like two sides of a coin. They are jewels on a sacred cord, your soul's axis. Now sense your soul's axis reaching deep into the earth and upward into the stars, a living bridge connecting your essence with the cosmos. Feel yourself anchored, aligned, unshakable. And now we're going to talk about the pillar of creative emergence. So notice that same golden thread, your soul axis, pulsing with energy. It is so alive. It's like a river of light running through you. As you've reclaimed your parts and they've brought to you their wounds and their gifts for your healing and expression, you are now awakening your life force, the current of creative power that flows when you live from your soul's essence. Just feel its pulsing. Notice the vibration emitting throughout your body, outside of your body. Let this energy expand beyond your skin, radiating into the space around you like a spiral of light. You are activated, amplified, alive. Now ask softly, what wants to emerge through me now? What creation longs to be born? Don't force an answer, just listen. And trust whatever flickers into your awareness, an image, a word, a feeling. And finally, as we attune to the cosmos and nature, the planet Earth, feel your breath sinking with the pulse of Earth beneath you, the slow, steady heartbeat of the planet. Imagine the roots of your energy system extending deep from your energy centers, down your spine, and into the molten core of Mother Earth. And pull that tightly so you are anchored to her. And above you, sense the vast sweep of stars and galaxies. Cosmic currents spiraling through infinity. Imagine a golden thread connecting your crown to that celestial tapestry. And also imagine that the electromagnetic current that you are that spirals through your own sacred geometry, every quark and atom, every cell and organ of you is embedded in the sacred geometric forces that surround you and all living things on the planet and on the cosmos. Now feel all these forces, the grounded strength of Earth, the infinite sweep of the cosmos, the continuous scale of electromagnetic forces, all flowing through you. You are a bridge, the axis, the portal where Earth and cosmos meet. Breathe this coherence into every cell of your being. And whisper inwardly, I am a living portal. I am whole. I am aligned. I am the source of new worlds. So take a deep breath. Anchor that experience into your body. Feel the weight of your body here and now, your feet on the floor, both anchored and expansive all at once. When you're ready, wiggle your fingers and toes. Open your eyes and bring that wholeness and creative power back with you. So I want to thank you for participating. I'm going to end the slides here in a minute, but I just wanted to share that this Living Portal initiation I am launching in October is a year-long journey to live into the 4 pillars and become a living portal. So as I shared, I've spent a lifetime, or probably quite a few lifetimes, arriving at this place where I've gained an awareness of how to go there, and guided dozens of clients into this realm, and would be absolutely delighted to share more if you're interested. So I want to stop the share now. Oops, did I do that right? Yep. And now we're going to go into some breakouts and talk about what we experienced. Thanks, Tom. So, Eloy, I think you are set with breakouts and questions. So these are the questions I would like for us to attend to in the first breakout. We're going to do 2 breakouts, and they're each going to be about 15 minutes long. And after the first breakout, and you'll have roughly 3 people, might be more or less, and 1 or so of them, Eloy. Yep. And so as much as you can answer these questions, if you desire, probably 5 minutes each person. And then we'll come back to the main group and we'll do a brief debrief for 5-10 minutes. And then we'll go back into breakouts and answer some more questions, reflect on some questions.
So the first question's in the chat.
Yes.
So and there may be a little juggling here and there, but
so for this first breakout, I'd love for you to reflect on when you recalled your parts in that first visualization. Who were the parts of you that arrived to be witnessed? What did they represent? but parts of you wanting to be reclaimed to come home to you. And so, what is the truth of who you are that has been lost or repressed? The fragment of truth ready to come online now. I'm hoping you may have gained some insight into that. So, ready for breakouts, everybody? Let's go when you're ready, Eloy.
Breakout sessions are not recorded.
I'm curious what came up for everybody. What was, let's, for a few minutes, if you want to debrief, what was your experience? Anybody want to share?
You get 2 thumbs up, I think, Holly, for your artwork, for the use of synchronicities, and we're just in awe of how we are now, putting together the pieces, the parts, the golden thread, all of the above. So all of Eloy's flying hearts and my applause, you deserve every bit of it.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. That was so sweet, Anna. It's lifetimes coming. So, and to be honest, this is not me. I am just the being through which all of this has arrived. So I don't honestly, I stayed long enough to let it arrive, and I'm going to start crying here in a minute.
Oh,
Some of you know I spent 30 years on and off suicidal and did not want to stay because life is that hard. But I kept hearing, the voices, can't go, here to do something important. And I just like, okay, you got to show me at some point. But I literally, truly am just a portal for what's emerging through me now. And honestly, I believe deeply that many of us can go there and create a new world. So honestly, I'd love to hear what happened in your breakouts if you're willing to share, and then we'll go to another and have some more questions. I want to just share that briefly, in nutshell, that while I'm guessing most everybody in this room has just done boatloads of work, you wouldn't be here in this community if you weren't highly evolved and conscious and like done it, lifetime, if not lifetimes. So this isn't about early parts work. And, I've done it. I understand who my exiled child is. I know my protectors, etc. We're going to get it. Like, we're going to get every last residue remnant of the parts and reclaim them, because you need to be whole, like all of them, lifetimes. And so this work really is about reclaiming all of them. One of the participants in the room I was in, has done decades of work, and 98% there. And it's like, yeah, but it's that 2% that's keeping you from living in magic. And it's probably, 42 lifetimes ago, and there was a thing, and it's still present in your life. And that's what's keeping you living the magic you are here to live. And I may sound like a car salesman. Anyway, Karen, you were going to say something. You were going to offer something.
Yeah, I ended up in the room with Tom and Christine Habib. We had fun. One of the parts that came up for me, these were familiar characters, because I've done a lot, like you said, I've been working on this through a deep dive through Jung in the 90s when I was dealing with some midlife issues. I got to know my animus very well, and I figured, okay, we're on really good diplomatic terms. That's great. But I think of him as one of his aspects. He's the red barbarian warlord who lives in my third chakra. Well, he kind of said hi. There were a number of other parts too that I know, but he came up and said hi during our exercise just now. And so we had fun, Christine and Tom and I, because they got to hear him roar at an integral conference back in 2017, 2018. And you heard him roar too. Holly, when we were at the Embodied Integral Conference, and you were part of letting that roar, the self-assertion that I was not allowed to as a small child. Don't express it, don't even feel it. You know, wipe that expression off your face. Don't even feel that, and that needs to roar every now and then. So he came out and said, you know, this is your voice that you're bringing into the world through your creative writing. And so I acknowledge what the layer I felt with this time was that each of those parts, the parts I already know, and I have names and I know what they look like, where they are, live energetically in my body. But I saw them this time through the filter of, I mean, what they have to offer me, that the positive, the treasure that the dragon guards, what they have to offer, the parts that I can reclaim in this. And I very much totally resonate with you. We are portals. Every one of us, we are portals for the future. Evolution is not done with us. We are collectively the portals for whatever beautiful, bright future is waiting for us on the other side of this spasm of change that we're in the middle of. So rah, rah, keep up the good work.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So our parts want to come home. That's the bottom line is, you know, they've been in the vastness, non-space-time, waiting for us to reclaim them.
We throw them into the outer dark, and they want to come back into the light.
They so want to be here with us now. I'm gonna start crying again. And to be clear, when we've actually fully reclaimed them, and this is different than IFS, but it's been my awareness the last several years in working with clients, is they don't actually integrate, like become inside us. They actually are independent sovereign beings who travel alongside us in parallel, and therefore magnify, they're like, talk about magnify, all of these parts become a part of our, you know, bigger, broader self. I don't have words to describe all of this. It's just what me and clients have, like, oh my God, this is actually what's happening. And so if they are still living in a form that has resistance, repression, etc., there's some growing up work. Literally each of them has a developmental trajectory as well. And so they can come into form with us that is their most mature version. So
yeah, I have my own image in term as they have come up over the decades of my life, and I've worked with them and gotten acquainted, and I think of them as what semi-autonomous subpersonalities would be an acceptable psychiatry, but I think of them as separate beings. And after I have kind of encountered and listened, and what do you want to tell me? And so I invite them to join the Council of the Pines. And I think of it's from a Native American term, but there's like my larger self has so many parts that aren't my little ego. And every one of them has a voice on the Council of the Pine. So after I've worked through whatever I needed to, why they were in my face in terms of symptoms, you know, I invite them to join. Your voices, and my phrase is, your voice is welcome on the Council of the Pines. And generally, I never hear back from them. You know, if there's a problem, they speak up. But that's because that's kind of something how I've kind of worked this out in my trajectory.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
Yeah, I wanted to share something. Thanks. In our group, I was mentioning that, you know, I did work with Barbara Marx Hubbard going back like 15 years ago now. And she had the wheel of co-creation which looked quite similar to your spiral, the picture that you had. I didn't know if you've done work with her, if you did work with her. And part of what I was seeing, I was reminded of the quote from T.S. Eliot, because, you know, so many of us have done so many different programs and processes over the years. Something about, you know, after all the seeking and searching, you come back to this place where you began and you know it for the first time. So for me, I've kind of come to an awareness, and I don't know what this is or not, but it's like we already are whole. You know, we came in whole and complete. You know, we already are what we will be. So it's that paradox, it's holding that paradox and working with that. So everything that we're doing, all these different processes, and it's like, it's the game of life. And we will arrive back to where we started, whole and complete. But I think, for me, it's kind of like Barbara Marx Hubbard's work. We've lost so many of the wise sages that she did, and we lost Terry Patton. We lost so many of these people who have developed these beautiful programs. And what I'm seeing with you, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, but it's kind of like a fresh new package of some of the same kinds of things that many of us have been doing. Something new, so that you're putting your own piece to it. You're adding your own piece to it, but it's kind of like building on the foundation of all those things that have come before. How do you feel about that?
Well, thank you, Marjorie. I appreciate I have worked with Barbara. I actually helped her get clarity about her last incarnation as a human. And I can't even remember what it was called now. She had a new name for the new being, and it slipped my mind.
Alice.
I'm sorry?
Homo universalis.
Yes, Homo universalis, that's right. She didn't have clarity about it, and I helped her gain clarity. I worked with her while I was at Shift Network. So I don't see the similarities between this and Barbara's work, and I'm welcome to consider that possibility. Terry was a good friend of mine. If this looks similar to things you've experienced, that's great. I'm very honored that you included me in speaking about Barbara and Terry. That really causes me to become verklempt. Yeah, I'm not sure what else I want to say about that. Thank you for your share.
You're welcome. I'm just speaking through my own lens, and I don't pretend to know everything that you're presenting. So I'm just happy to see someone new that I'm new to me anyway, presenting something else. Yeah,
I'm definitely not new.
New to me.
Eloy, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. In our group, two of us talked about how we dozed off during your talk. But we were surprised. So neither of it, well, what we said was neither of us dozed off easily. And we felt that we were in that liminal space.
You went somewhere.
Receiving.
Wow.
It's not like we fell deep asleep. It was just, falling in and out. So
yeah, beautiful.
There was that. And then for me, myself, there was this remembrance of a workshop I did with Daniel Bonder on waking down into mutuality work, where I had a calling to unleash my inner wild man. And I ended up with 6 months of migraines.
Oh, God.
from that. Yeah. And I totally forgot about it. And anyway, that's what came back up for me today, but it was like, there was a qualitative difference of reintegrating that wild man. This wasn't for me, the initial thing was like this crazy wild, like unhinged energy kind of thing with, and now it's more like, today it was like, this just came in as more refined. I forget all the words I said, but it feels more, more mature, like way more.
Yeah, more developed.
Yeah, and it's like now it's time, and the migraines were probably because it was an overwhelm from my psyche and my parts and all that stuff, and so anyway.
Thank you for sharing. Eloy, believe it or not, I'm honored that you fell asleep, because that means you received the transmission, the energetic transmission. Your brain did not need to be there to absorb it. So, so thank you. Yeah. So we have another set of questions. And we are going to, just so everybody knows, we are going to we'll end the formal presentation today at by the top of the hour, wherever you are. And then we'll stay on for informal chat, gathering, whatever. So we'll still do probably, maybe just shy of 15 minutes in this next breakout and come back and see who's anything to share. Yeah. All right. So Eloy, would you mind putting the second set of questions in the chat? Thank you so much for your support.
Okay, and here we go.
And so they're really thinking about the pillars, wholeness, soul alignment, animating your life force, wild creator, creative energy, and then attuning to the cosmos. Which of those pillars do you most embody now? What do you resist or long for? And if you could live as a portal, who would you be? How would you think, feel, act if you were sourced from the field? And what would be possible in your life?
Breakout sessions are not recorded.
Thanks, everybody. Few minutes, insights, questions, experiences, anything people want to share? I don't see hands. Oh, Christine.
So we were just wrapping up with, whether some of these in soul alignment is an internal manifestation. Wild creator is an external, I think. Cosmic, do you have a sense of what is internal, external, or is that a false way of looking at it?
I mean, that's an interesting way. I wouldn't categorize it in that way. Mostly because what I'm suggesting, I think, is literally as we become sourced, we become whole, aligned, amplified internally, and attuned, our expression does emerge differently. We are sourced instead of efforting, producing, worrying, the current version of I'm creating something, so I have to really think about it, and I have to effort to create something. When it's sourced, it just emerges through you. And so internal, this is the involution, evolution. Involution turns into evolution. I don't think it doesn't fit neatly internal, external like that. Happy for you to think about it that way. It's just that's the way I frame it. I don't know, did you have more, Christine?
No, so you said involution turns to evolution.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things that I think is a challenge for those of us in the room who've done, decades or lifetimes of work. I'm guessing that, quite a few of you are ancient souls and have done this a few times, at least, that our tendency is to think, well, I've done that, and I'm just going to keep doing the thing I'm doing. And that's perfectly fine, great, wonderful, to have done a lot of work and be contributing in a way that is benefiting you and the world. And the distinction I want to make, if nothing else, is that what's available when you literally reclaim all the parts from all the lifetimes, who then align to your soul, and you become a sourced creation, is there is no more work to be done. The universe works you, but you literally show up as this portal through which it all happens. Now, that doesn't mean you don't show up in your everyday life, and if you do computer work, you sit at your computer, but it means it doesn't hurt. I don't have to the effort is different. I mean, I'm literally showing up in my life, but I don't have to figure out what's next. I don't have to contend with where's my market? How do I find them? I don't have to figure out, do I write this book? Do I do a podcast? It's literally delivered to me. And it feels like magic. And I am always in love. And I want that for everybody. I'm not trying to talk you into doing anything with me. I just want all of us to have that. We deserve to have that. We are magical beings who somehow got lost in the separation. And we all, most of us have studied some spirituality or one form or another. So we know it cognitively, but when you are not separated, it literally does change everything as a human. And I just want to invoke that possibility for us.
Well, thank you, Holly. That's I think that's a great place to say we're at the end of the formal time here. Just really want to thank you so much for your work, your brilliant work, your transmission. It's just been a pleasure to have you here, and if you would maybe type into the chat again your website or other information if people are interested in following up, we appreciate that. But again, so many thanks to you, and um, also thank you everyone else for being here. Some of you may have to drop off now at the end of the 2-hour session, but again, at this point, we're going to move on to our informal social time. And again, this will be very lightly, if at all, facilitated, but it's just like an open discussion to continue on the topic here. And Holly is able to stick around too, so she'll be a part of it, but it's not a specifically a presentation or anything. So, and again, if we have quite a few people who want to talk, the raise your hand button is helpful to put you up in the queue. And so, again, thanks so much, Holly, and we'll and bye to anyone who has to drop off, and let's move into the social time.
Holly, in the chat, it says livingportal.co. Should it be co or .com?
CO.
Okay.
What struck me is it takes the whole idea of construct aware to another level.
Mm-hmm.
And even though, this idea of isolation, flatland that Wilbur calls it, that if the dynamic play between involution, involution, and evolution is always presence in sourcing us no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
the possibilities of what we can take down from the cosmic awareness, I mean, I'm just blown away. I want to revisit energetic areas
Mm-hmm.
and try to see them a little more fully. It'd be hubris to think I could contain it all. But my favorite pillar was wild creator
Mm-hmm.
because of my own developmental failure, not having adequate role models.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny to see that as a source of how I download what wants to emerge. I find it very, very interesting. Guided by some efforts to have soul alignments, guided by some radical wholeness,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely tapping the cosmic attunement. But I love this idea of, and I did tap into what you said, Marjorie, that Barbara Max Hubbard's idea of being aware of the non-temporal energy that's always available to us.
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely feel that, both past and what wants to emerge. So I think all of us are individually playing with how is this going to land on us? Where are we developmentally, and how is this landing? I mean, it's a freeing, but it's disorienting. Like Eloy said, he ended up with 6 months of headaches because of it. I can certainly see that. But anyways, that's my initial reaction.
Thank you, Tom. Barbara definitely channeled. She woke up channeling, you know. I think she came in awake and started channeling very early. You know, she was a phenomenon, very special human. But to be honest, we all have access to that, and we don't access it because we are so constrained by the beliefs and patterns and constrictions of our parts across time and space, who want us to be small, to stay safe and protected. And therefore, we are living into those constrictions and fragments of ourselves, and then can't possibly have access to what wants to live through us. Like, you know, it makes logical sense that if I become more whole, like I won't have all these fragmented parts that try to keep me safe.
Oh, I described that in the breakout as feel like I have 1 foot on the gas and 1 foot on the brake.
And God, does that make us sick? And I mean, I was telling Larry that at one point I had 12 autoimmune disorders. And the internist said, I can't do anything for you, you know, from the medical system. I can give you pain meds, but you have to live with these. And I said, hell no, I'm either leaving or I'm going to find another way, which was one of the levers for me, one of the places where I pivoted and said, got to figure this out. I'm not going to live in that marginal form. But parts were responsible, literally. It's one of the things that, anyway.
Sorry, I can't work this react thing. It won't raise a hand for me. I just wanted to say something to let us off the hook a little bit. You know, it's not just us alone and the decisions we make and the efforts we make. We live in yeah, I'll say it. We live in a dangerous world, and the world doesn't support us. And so if we're in defensive mode a lot of the times, I feel a lot of compassion for that. There's probably some good reasons for it. Yes, a lot of the reasons are going to come from our past and our patterns. But you know, it's not friendly out there for the most part. You know, this is a friendly community. But if we shrink up as we move through our worlds, I feel compassion for that because there are real reasons for it. You know, perhaps the best we can do is to realize when we're in certain situations, this doesn't feel safe. And, you know, and maybe move towards safer situations where we can unfold and we can open up, you know, and channel what you're talking about and be that portal. But I don't blame us alone. I mean, we try. But it's easier when we're in safe surroundings, when we don't have to be on the alert, because other people or institutions or political situations are not friendly right now. So, you know, I just wanted to give us a little booster.
Thank you, Lorraine. That was a really appropriate interjection. I don't blame any of this. Like, you know, and that's not what you were suggesting, nor should we be shamed or feel guilty or less than if we don't become this. Like we are all here fucking doing our very best. Pardon my French, but like we're all doing our very best every day of our lives. And many of us have had very challenging lives. I think the distinction I would like to make is that our parts absolutely serve to protect us. They were formed at a time in our life, generally childhood, where something needed to be shut down in order to be safe, to survive, to thrive, to prosper, to even exist in our childhood context. And so, absolutely. And they keep serving us, you know, in a lifetime or lifetimes, they are doing the job that they needed to do, and therefore we are safe, theoretically, you know, somewhat. It is a very tough world. One of the patterns I grew up with was exposure to lots and lots of narcissists. I've had 58 years of being exposed to narcissists. And, you know, we all know how unsafe that is. And I kept repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating the pattern, like, what the heck? Until I found the part from, I don't remember when it was, but it was a past life karmic thread. And oh my gosh, no wonder I've had to contend with this part and this pattern and this way of living. And when I began to work with the part and integrate it, et cetera, it grew up, it finally became, you know, a part of my whole self, then narcissism stopped. So one of the most significant things I think that's available by doing this work is that we become safer. I no longer have to deal with narcissists. Or if one comes in my life, it's like, yeah, let's just test you. Are you really done? You know, oh, maybe I have a little bit of residue I still need to do. But like, you don't have to repeat the patterns over and over again that we came to this lifetime to solve. And so, yeah, no, we can't do anything about the Trump era. It is real. It is unsafe out there. And I can become more whole, more fully available to what it is mine to do at this time in this crazy phase of life we're in. There's a whole lot more I can say, but I'm doing all the talking and I don't want to do all the talking, so I'll stop. Thank you for sharing that. I so appreciate it. Absolute compassion. And, you know, we must love and have compassion for the parts of ourselves who have struggled for lifetimes.
Yeah, Holly, you
Sorry.
mentioned a book that you'd written about your journey. You said the title, but before I could write it down, it slipped my mind. Could you repeat the title and say how I can get a copy?
It's The Golden Thread, Where to Find Purpose in the Stages of Your Life. I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm definitely want to follow up on that. Yeah, I spent 9 years of my 20s with in pseudo relationship with a narcissist. It was a 9 year stretch, but when I was done with it, I was really done. But I wouldn't be who I am today without it. And in my 70s now, I can go back and see where in as I deconstruct my very early childhood, why that interlude in my 20s with a narcissist was the appropriate way to work out some things. And then when you start remembering past lives and say, holy Toledo, when it starts making more sense in the context of past lives, that's a whole nother, like, oh my God, we've been doing this a long time. There's so many layers. And I would just find I found myself while you and some of the others were speaking, I found myself reframing that. I mean, basically, we've been on this journey, as far as we know through modern science, we've been on this journey for 13.8 or something billion years. And so I see where we are now. Yes, that yes, there's fragmentation. However, this is fragmentation that precedes a greater unification. So this is the course of biological evolution. It's the course of all evolution since the Big Bang. Differentiation, 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 and then a new layer of complexity emerges and the different parts integrate into a larger whole. And that's how we get greater complexity of form that carries greater complexity of consciousness. And this is, I think, Teilhard de Chardin's, I don't know if Ken Wilber discovered this without Teilhard de Chardin, but this is a huge trajectory that we're on. And so where we are now is we are fragmented. This is how I see it. We are so fragmented because we are just on the verge of the next great integration, where the parts come together in the greater whole. And part of the work you're doing and so many other people here is that's the breakthrough, that this breakdown we're going through is just as much a breakthrough into what becomes possible next, a greater the future human, right?
Right.
The future human is in the process of being born right now. And I see the disasters that scream us in our headlines. They are the birth pangs that are pushing what we're becoming collectively into its birth into the next new order of complexity. So I see, yes, the fragmentation, but it's moving toward something.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. That was beautiful. I'm gonna and I'll respond to that in a minute, but one of the things I wanted to share, and it's similar, it's related to your question, is one of the more recent psychedelic journeys I did. I was taken to my experience with mother who did not provide, abusive, etc. And I had to sit with the dark forces that had consumed her, that literally were trying to get to my light. And I was forced to face those, not only the grief of her having lived that life and its effect on me, but the actual utility of that light in amplifying my brightness. And I was forced to then sit with the dark forces on their own. And the spirit guide shared with me that either, this is a major shamanic move. We're all going to have to learn is we can't get rid of, we're not supposed to actually clear all the dark and get rid of it and cleanse it and the thing. It's like dark and light have to coexist, right? It's the duality of the truth of duality. And so this whole life journey, I've been on and that thing had to happen for me to have this experience. What a freaking blessing that was. And that is why when I say I live a magic life, it's like everything I've ever needed has actually been delivered to me, and I learned from it and grew. And it may have been very uncomfortable or painful or traumatic, but I became the version of myself, literally now living this form because I allowed the dark. And so, Anna, that's really your question is involution is our ability and the force of nature that is a spiral. It's a spiral. Think about a spring, right? A coil. Now, a coil only works because it has opposing sides and the ability to contract and expand. So a coil would be useless if it didn't have both sides go, all of the spiral. And so if we consider I don't know if y'all know that everything in our body is a spiral, like everything. Our heart is not a pump, it's a helicomycoidal heart. Blood spins like a spiral. Our DNA is a spiral. Like our brain spirals, like everything in our body spirals. And so when you think about the force that's available from that movement, and we know evolution, we see it as a spiral. We are always going into the dark and out with the light, and into the dark and out with the light. So we're literally processing that which lives beneath our awareness, that is shadowed, that is inviting us to have a greater awareness, consciousness. I'm not saying this very well. I don't literally have the words to describe this. I can sense it, feel it, be it. But like, we have to go in and down and up and out in order to be the light. And so digging into the depths of our being, that which we can't see, which is shadowed, in order to live as a greater expression, to evolve, to express, is, my understanding of evolution. That's not truth. It's just how I get it. I don't know if that answered. That was a lot of words. Sorry about that. Larry, you had a question.
Hi.
Hey,
So
Larry.
about half a lifetime ago, I was taking a workshop, and one of the exercises in the workshop was called the glove compartment. And the thing was, as you said, when I was little, my mother locked me in the glove compartment, and that's why I've got all this screwed up stuff in my life. And the point is that it may, when you didn't know why, you could always just use the glove compartment as a generic answer. And what that would allow you to do is focus on what the problem was and what you could do about it, as opposed to trying to understand the source and the nature of how it evolved. Now, in light of this, now I've been kind of walking with that for the rest of the second half of my life, but this may be time to replace that. So the question I raise is, do we need to know about what happened in our past lives in order to deal with the present shifting that we need to do?
And most people would say, no, you don't. My way of understanding how this works required me to be more inquisitive and understand the origin of some of the patterns that I've dealt with in this life. I don't think that's necessarily true for everybody. I think we can solve lifetime wounding and we can solve karmic threads without understanding the origin. And I'll also say that when we uncover a part, it wants to be known. It wants you, Larry, to understand why this particular protector part was formed and how that served you, and for you to gain an awareness and an acceptance and an appreciation of what it did. That's part of the process, so that you can have a new empathy for it and develop a kind of an intimate relationship with it, so that it can morph, transmute into a new form, which is the ultimate goal. And it's not to rectify the past or blame or anything other than, like, what was the utility? Like, what did it do? Like, how did it serve? And how was that useful to you until this moment? So many of our parts, like, that are still at play, still fractured, like we still have them. There are personality quirks. They're the things that people say, oh yeah, I know Holly, she does that thing. Right? And and they may or may not be serving our highest, best self. And so if we can understand it and help it evolve, develop to a mature form, then it resolves. It literally, poof, goes away. The pattern goes away. The part doesn't go away. The part literally just matures.
So Eloy brought up the idea of one step forward, one step back. I define neurotic struggles as pushing and pulling at the same time, which grounds us in the gross level. And it's an absolute waste of what could be divine energy.
Yeah.
Working on shadow and repression
Mm-hmm.
prevents neurotic struggles. That prevents. It lowers the amount of neurotic struggle. We're always going to have some neurotic struggle.
Yeah.
I want the cake. I want to be healthy. It's just part of our freedom of choice. How many of you have read Chris Bache's work, Psychedelics and the Cosmic Mind?
Yeah. Twice.
So it was great, wasn't it? He presented here a year ago. And, you know, what Holly's talking about and what Chris found in those deep LSD journeys, one is the repetitive nature, the Hindu nature of we're living other lives. And number two was the idea that there's some sort of intelligence in the universe trying to push our evolution so we could participate at that level. He was fully aware it could have been just hallucinations. I love how he constantly reminded of us. So it's kind of interesting finding this alignment of the grandest scheme and how much we're supposed to know at this point. Um, I personally have a hard time digging up much around past lives, although I got some threads.
Count your blessings.
I don't know. I think it's good. I mean, it can be it can be very painful. I've had quite a few revelations that like, oh my God, no wonder I've had this life. And you know, and then you release the energy of it. And
yeah,
I did that too. I was that level of perpetrator. Like, yeah. Oh well.
The first time I had a past life recall, I was actually trying the Jungian technique of active imagination, and I'd found a warning by Marie-Louise von Franz, and you don't try this. I mean, she gave a very detailed recipe. Don't try this unless you've got a qualified professional. I thought, well, I'm mature and my personality's stable. I can handle what comes up. I got a past. I didn't get what you're supposed to get. It was like you talk about an intractable mood and get to the bottom of it. You know, like parts where I got a download of a past life that I was not expecting, and I spent the next 3 days basically huddled, shivering in a corner of my house, coming to terms with it. And you know, that opened some portals, and it was wonderful and part of what I'm supposed to be doing, and it's enriched my life and all that. But it was a pretty shocking experience at the time.
So I want to hear other people. Larry, you've been quiet. I want to hear how this has landed on you.
Thanks.
The other
really
Larry.
like the what?
The other Larry.
Where is the other Larry? Oh, there he is. First right. Go ahead. Sorry.
Both my breakouts were with Holly. So, you know, I pretty much shared. Is there something in particular, Tom, you'd like to hear?
I just want to hear how it's landing on you.
Say again?
I just want to hear how it's hitting you.
How it's wetting me?
Hitting you.
Oh, hitting me.
Yeah, share with us.
Oh God, pardon me, Holly, I'm going to regurgitate here a little bit. I get like 5, 6 things that are trying to come through and bottlenecking.
Pick one.
Well, I've been doing a lot of inner work, you know, for several decades, since my 20s. I'm 77 now. And so a lot of this is not new to me. I mean, this is not new information. Holly has some, she has an elaborate experiential base to be speaking from, which gives a lot of credibility to what she's saying, but a lot of the concepts and models that she's sharing, most of them aren't new to me. That said, the journey continues. You know, I still have work to do. I'm aware of that. And I don't like repeating myself, Holly, so that's part of what I'm having a
fine. Good.
I'm glad I'm here. And when Holly mentioned the person that had 98% of the work done, that was me that said that. I feel that way, and I got work to do. I'm very aware of that. I keep waking up in a body every morning. I got work to do before I move on. And I also told Holly that I've never thought of killing myself, but for the last 25 years, not a week goes by, I don't think about leaving, transitioning. That doesn't mean killing myself, but like, I don't know if I'm done here or not, but I mean, I have a sense of what's on the other side, and I'm ready to step into that. And it's more inviting to me than being on the planet is. And I'm not depressed about that or about being on the planet. It's with my MECFS situation I've been dealing with for 25 years, needing 14 hours of bedtime a day and all that. Not depressed about it, just working with it and doing what I got to do. It's I don't want to ramble. I don't know if I'm giving you what you want, Tom.
Yeah, you give me Larry. And I kind of like sometimes you're rambling.
Okay, I'll continue. I love doing this kind of work. I mean, I live for it. I literally live for it. And that I keep waking up every day is kind of supportive of that. And I guess sharing with Holly, a challenge I have is I've been a reluctant leader all through my life. I especially discovered this in my undergrad days. You know, I was given opportunities to be a leader, and I didn't want to do it. Or I would co-lead with somebody else. I wouldn't do it alone. But I would be chosen to be a leader for something, and I didn't want to do it. And how that showed up for me recently is looking at hubris, my own hubris, trying to sort that out or integrate that with being a leader, a clean leader. Not that that's doable, but that's my aspiration, or at least getting kind of close to being a clean leader. And life is problematic. That's not good or bad. It's just, there's challenges, like my car started giving me weird symptoms, and I diagnosed it, and it took me a couple of days, and I had to rebuild the distributor, which I did. Got it in, car started up yesterday, all's good. So we have challenges, and they're all opportunities to learn about ourselves, about the planet, about things on the planet. And I keep waking up every morning, more opportunity. So being a leader, looking at my hubris, I definitely have some hubris. I don't know if I'd call it arrogant. That seems like too strong of a word, but hubris, like I think I know what I'm talking about. And I largely do, at least for my context, know what I'm talking about. Doesn't mean other people agree with it or like it or want to listen. That's is what it is. Yeah, I've got work to do. I see that. It's in front of me. I engage it as much as I am willing and able at any point in time. And none of it's depressing. Even with my health condition for 25 years, none of it's depressing. There's something that is alive in me. I call it my soul trying to express through me, something that's alive in me, not in my material self, not even my mind, but somewhere in my consciousness, which is a larger context than mind, as I write about it anyhow, talk about it. There's something in there that helps me feel at least okay, if not good, about what I'm dealing with. Even in groups, I wouldn't expect to have any resistance in, and I get resistance. I go, oh, that's interesting. And I look at my part of that. I look at that person's part of it, or those people's part of it, and even try to see it from their perspective as to why they're doing that, how they're being that way toward me, wanting me not to speak up. And that ties right into my reluctance about being a leader. or being outspoken or being a contributor. Have I rambled enough, Tom?
Yeah, you have. Well, what strikes me is no matter how much work we do, we're all going to carry a certain amount of shadow because as we evolve, we can't possibly see how extensive and complex it is. Humble, as you said, is always a good thing because you kind of say, and I hope I don't have to repeat it more than 3 times. I hope I can learn whatever I got to learn quicker. And I do like that. I did want to say, you're going to love, Holly, what the theme of Icon 26. It's fun that it's all in alignment. And those of us here that know it, we can't say it until I get the okay from the event committee. But you're going to see why it's going to align perfectly. And I need a commitment from you that you're going to put an application in to speak. Yes, Holly?
If as long as I don't end up in a 20-minute slot, I'm happy to speak. I'm not going to do another 20-minute slot, Tom. I can't do this in 20 minutes.
We got to see how it falls out and how big it can be. Because it's always difficult getting everybody in. But the alignment is wonderful
No.
of what's happening. So
I will have a cohort going halfway through the year by then, so we'll have some great successes to report.
dynamite.
A quick question on that. That is happening in the last week in May, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That last weekend, the hotel's signed for, the AV is on board. We may
Same
have,
hotel?
yeah, we have the hotel.
Same hotel, I mean, that
No,
we had
no,
before.
no. We wanted to upgrade without killing the budget. So it's going to be at the Delta Hotel in Thornton.
Oh, in Thornton, okay.
Yep. And it looks really good. The beauty is we could put into it up to 1,000 people there.
Ooh.
So it's not the same hotel as last 2 years ago?
No, it was in a terrible area. So
Yeah.
this was only next to a freeway with a big park right next to it too. So, I just didn't want to. Christine's already threatened me that if I lose a lot of money, I have to sell my Corvette.
Oh, no, not that.
Might be a blessing in disguise.
I can't feel it.
Hey, Holly, I had a question about some of the how some of the sources of ancient wisdom play into the scheme of things, because it seems like there's been these pillars of like Buddhism and Kashmir Shaivism and the Vedic texts and all of that stuff that are just maybe incredibly channeled or something like that have some aliveness in this whole in the wholeness of inclusive of what you're talking about. I think it's kind of like the thread of the multi-generational stuff or the ancestry stuff. These I don't want to call them religions, but these teachings, and they have an aliveness to them. They're not, at least the people I hear talking about Buddhism or teaching the Vedic texts are having it in context of not just the past, but the current and the future.
Was there a question in there, Eloy?
Yeah. How does that?
I completely. I mean, I've had, the blessing of being exposed to quite a good chunk of the world's religions and spiritual lineages. Principally through my time at Chef Network, I met hundreds and hundreds of spiritual teachers, and I don't pretend to be an expert in any of them. My own spirituality cosmology is very patchwork. And simultaneously I'm also a scientist and have studied many forms of science and also pull on, you know, a
Hello, you've reached the confidential voicemail.
that's
Tom, you want to mute yourself?
a slight you know, a slight awareness of many forms of science. And so who was it? Was it Anna? I can't remember who said, well, this feels like so many other things. You know, it isn't new. And it's like, well, yes, that is true. I have gleaned information and mastery to some extent of many things in the world. And, you know, ultimately, I'm a practitioner. Like, I don't want to just sit and talk about it or study it or meditate on it or philosophize about it. I want to actually embody it. I want to, and so when I said I began living these things, then my task became, and what the hell did I do to get here? Like, what worked and what didn't, and what was efficient and what wasn't. So I've spent, you know, the last 10 years really uncovering the methods, the strategies, the tools that made it happen, because I don't want to be the world's expert on all these things. Like, I don't want to talk about them. I want to actually cause it to happen in us. So I can't adequately respond to your question, Eloy, because I'm not that expert. I mean, I have studied, but and I know many world religions talk about accomplishing these things, and it takes lifetimes, and like, we don't have that time. We got this. So that's why I'm doing this.
Yeah, I'll just throw in here, since we're hanging out and being groovy, that my background is a PhD in cultural history. And then when my spiritual path found me, and that was through a severe depression, a really severe depressive episode, and my spiritual path found me, and I realized that there are spiritual dimensions, and the truth is far beyond intellectual truth. And why am I wasting my time with academia when truth is in all these higher spiritual planes? And I ended up in a spiritual path, a very traditional one, very amber blue in the levels, but it opened those portals to me. And so I bailed out of academia. That was part of the problem. That was part of why I was so depressed, and made my living by being a housewife instead. But I've pursued this has been like a hobby, a passion of mine, to see how the different wisdom traditions of the world are all basically talking about what Hollywood's is talking about today, and embodying it as best they knew how in their time, in their culture. And they align across all of the levels. And so I love, so to me, this is like playing with Tinker Toys. How does this tradition align with this tradition, align with this tradition, which is a lot of fun. And I've got charts and graphs, and maybe I'll show them at some conference one day, just for fun, only if it's fun. But this is like, but Holly's doing it. It's not just kind of building beautiful, lovely theories. And this is why I'm in love with Wilbur's Aqual, although I have some niggles around the edges. But Wilbur's Aqual map provides a cosmic framework in which all of these, in their place, make more sense in relationship to each other than they do by themselves. With a few niggles. His system isn't completely in focus yet, but they all align. And that's, oh yeah, I mean, there's something so real here. And that satisfies the scholar in me. But meantime, the practitioner wants to go there. And that's what Holly's doing. And she found her own path. She forged her own way. And it's real and it's true. And this is terrific. And I just want to, since we're just hanging out, I'm going to throw out a crazy theory of mine as I've put all this together. The portal we are going through together now, the future human, what lies on the other side of this collective breakdown our planet's going through. On the other side of that breakdown, the breakthrough, the future human, Chris Beisch, right? All of this. So far, suffering and the problem of suffering, boy, that's been front and center all through our 2+ hours together. I mean, what Holly went through, what I went through, what Larry went through, what all of us have had just in unacceptable levels of suffering, unbearable levels of suffering, but they were necessary to break us through our contracted sense of self. And what we're my crazy idea I just want to throw out there so folks can kick it around is I think we're going through a massive change. I think Wilbur's right. This isn't just a next structure level. This is a whole new tier we are opening. So, an accordingly massive breakdown of the old limits. But what we're moving to maybe as we individually and collectively become the portals that Holly is showing the map to, that is enabling us to open in ourselves. As those portals open, then suffering may not be necessary for evolution in the future. So far, the suffering has been necessary to goose evolution, like from the bottom up, like because we don't evolve if we stay in our comfort zones. We don't move up to the next level, right? It takes that kind of suffering where whole species die, or 90% of your species dies and the 10% that survives evolves into so on. We may not need the suffering nearly so much if we can be these portals. We can be guided by our opening to the higher to the higher wisdom as it's coming into the world and back through us, that we can be drawn by prajna and karuna, wisdom and compassion, the divine love, the divine intelligence that is behind the whole universe. So this is one of my crazy ideas. Maybe the intense planetary spasms we're going through will open us to that place where we can evolve more quickly in the future beautifully without suffering kicking our butts. We can rise up the internal light and let the light that's coming in through us flow out to the planet. So the whole planet, I mean, we are evolution on the planet now anyway. I mean, that genie's out of the bottle. Anyway, I'm just being wild and crazy here. So I'll let you folks chew on it.
I agree with you. There'll be less need, not a total absence of need for suffering. Because when you think of the resources we waste on the profane and things that are never going to give us anything worthwhile, when those resources come into alignment with purpose and higher values, I was reading something the other day that the world budget for weapons is expanding like 8 to 10% a year right now.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about just a waste. So there's going to be a lot of reasons why when this comes online, it's going to alter everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that I'll speak experientially. Suffering isn't necessary to move ourselves forward. I think pain is useful, emotional pain, psychological pain. And the distinction for me is suffering is just prolonged psychological, emotional pain. We don't deal with what's the problem, and we just stay in it. We just linger in it. We maybe start to identify as a victim, or we just we find some identity in the prolonged pain. And maybe it pleases a parent to do that, or it pleases whoever in our mind. I've never done that. I think the longest I've ever suffered when I was a kid, maybe. As an adult, no, I move through things, I deal with things. Maybe it's my Northern European ancestry, but I like being direct. Deal with it. Take what comes.
But remember, there's neurotic suffering too, neurotic struggle. It's almost important to eradicate pushing and pulling.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to as part of the psychological aspect or kind of suffering. Yeah, I mean, we bring so much on ourselves and make ourselves so dysfunctional, and we really don't need to do it. Or maybe we do need to do it, and that's part of the lesson is, but I've been pretty fortunate that even with my health condition the last 25 years, I've never suffered in it. I make the best of it, try to work around the symptoms, do what I can do with the energy I have, and the days I don't have the energy, I just stay home.
Right, but you got to endure a certain amount of pain.
Sorry?
We all have to endure a certain amount of pain.
Yeah, but that really isn't what it's not painful. It's like, okay, there's something I don't like. What's going on? What's that about? Do I need to be experiencing this? What is it about it that I can learn from this experience? And I get what I get, and then I start about solving it, healing it, working it through. And that's part of my, as I was sharing with Holly in our group. Oh, yeah. That's kind of a way of to be a leader for ourselves.
Mhm.
We can lead ourselves through this maze called life.
Mhm.
Instead of waiting for life to show us the way, we can take an active, proactive approach to trying to figure it out, deal with it, heal what needs to be healed, and just keep grappling. The big one is grappling with God. And I got a history of that. It's not good or bad. But it's necessary to some degree or another. So suffering, I don't think we need to be suffering.
Or grappling with age.
Grappling with age. Yeah. I'm dealing with that. Being bent over the hood of under the hood of my car for all those hours, my back is like, all right, Larry, at some point maybe you want to hire this out. But I'm thinking, no, I want to figure this out, and I'll work through it. I feel it in my lower back today, but you might call that pain, but it's not psychological pain. It's pain I brought on myself. I knew I was going to bring it on. Well, I didn't know I was going to bring it on. I suspected. I'm rambling. Sorry.
Yeah, what you ever forget, whether it's Jerry or Eloy, you spoke about having migraines for 6 months after some kind of energetic experience. Was that Eloy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had, after our embodied integral conference last April, Holly was there, and we had some collective energy things happening, and there were energies moving through me for some of it. And I mean, it was fantastic. And one of the things that happened was one of the exercises specifically helped move me through the blocks to getting back to work on my integral novel in progress. And boy, kablam, they blasted those clears. But Holly, when I went home, I was exhausted for 2.5 months. It was like I felt like I had aged 6 years, like I'd gone from age 73 to actually to 80. It's like, and it took, but after about 2 to 3 months, I kind of went back to my baseline. But that was like, I mean, I wasn't sure for the first week or two. Maybe I thought I had a bug, some kind of low-grade flu. And I realized I'm pretty sure now that was kind of, my channels aren't all clear by any means. We all have places where we're blocked. And we always have that residue as long as we're embodied in any of our subtle bodies, I think. And I think that was just kind of a reaction to having been in those intense energies for a while. That's my sense of it. So I'm curious if you have a different take on it, Holly.
No,
You were there and you saw what happened.
so not different, but you may recall that the portal I didn't get to because there wasn't time in the calendar was the attunement to nature and the cosmos.
Uh-huh.
The reason that is an important portal is because as we do this work and begin to channel and expand rapidly, we must ground and be supported by Mother Nature. Like, she is our greatest ally, and she has capacity to support us to become this next human. So
Yes.
literally, in this process, we do become the next version of humans. I don't have blue skin yet, but there's a lot of things that I experience that are not normal. And I am so attuned to the planet and to the cosmos that supports the continuous huge influx of energy that I experience like all the time. Sometimes it comes in like a tsunami, and it takes me a few hours or a couple of days, and then I'm grounded in it again, which I think is what's required. So not surprised you had that experience at all. It was a massive embodiment experience.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was, and it helps a lot that I can spend half of my time basically in a redwood forest surrounded by, I find that gives me a sense of being more alive again. The life energy flows more freely when I'm in a natural environment.
I was just going to agree with Larry about suffering. I used to suffer with the best of them. I was a victim for decades. And then at some point, a few years ago, I began to actually visualize and experience energetically the things coming at me that were like, oh no, it's a thing, it's a trauma. But I would welcome it, like, okay, what are you here for? And it would show up. I would have the experience and I would allow it, like Larry suggested, and it would be poof, it's gone. So I'm not saying nothing happens to me, and this is what I call magic. It's like, it's not like my life is perfect. It's just that everything that occurs is useful. It's important. I welcome it. Even if I, have some emotional dysregulation for a day or an hour or whatever, like it's going to do something in me that obviously I need. I welcome it, I allow it, and then it's done. And I don't suffer, like, ever. I can be tired, slightly overwhelmed at times, but I don't suffer anymore, like nothing. And it's like pretty cool, pretty darn cool.
May it be true of the future human.
Yeah,
It's coming online even as we sit here.
We had some shifts tonight. I don't know if y'all felt it. I the whole room literally moved, a bunch of energy. So we all probably need to good night sleep.
I'm feeling energized from it.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I like
Talking,
you
I'll
the way
be back
fellas.
What's that?
I like you the way fellas sleep during your portal description. So I'm glad that wasn't just negligence.
I wanted to do another portal talk so we can go to sleep now. A portal lullaby.
We could go back and listen to the recording.
Oh, thank you all so much. This was so fun.
Yeah, good. Thank you for coming, Ollie. Appreciate it a lot.
You're
It was
welcome.
outstanding. I think
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
really got a
thanks,
lot
Ollie.
out of
Yeah. This is wonderful.
Good to see you all.
it. So we're gonna have you back, Holly, sometime down
Yeah.
the road.
Okay.
Eli,
All right.
portal lullaby. I love that.
Lullaby.
I mean,
Okay.
sense into that.
That's hilarious.
You're right
Yeah.
there at that cusp of, oh no, I don't know if I want to do this. And you kind of go into this lullaby place where it's just easier to let it just open up. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one.
Heard a lullaby.
All right, is this a good place for us to wrap up?
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Be well.
See you all.
For further information, including upcoming events, resources, links to our Facebook and Meetup pages, and our fabulous donate button, please visit our website at sandiegointegral.org. Donations are greatly appreciated and help us to continue to provide information and connection within the Integral community.